This podcast intro, songs AI. It's on YouTube and Spotify. You can use your ears or use your eyes. It's 30 minutes randomized.
All right, everybody, welcome to the first ever episode of 30 Minutes Randomized, the only clinical trial podcast powered by IRT. And by that, I mean I have a randomizer wheel. And our guest today is Robert Goldman, who is the Vice President of Clinical Operations at Contraline. Robert, welcome to the pod.
Steve, I have to tell you, thank you very, very much. And to be your first guest, man, what an honor, honestly.
We'll see if you're singing the same tune in 30 minutes after you've been asked a bunch of random questions. We might talk about what Contraline is. It's on the wheel, but if we don't get there, I apologize. So for everybody who's new, which is everybody, because this is the first episode, I am going to spin a wheel and ask Robert a question. Some of them are kind of goofy, silly. Some of them are hardcore clinical research, dive into the weeds and talk about things. So we're going to give it a shot, see how it goes. Question number one, inbound. Okay. Gosh, we're diving right into it. Given your choice, and maybe given what you think is possible, if there's a choice between an end-to-end full-stack clinical trial platform that does everything from identifying the patient all the way through to database lock, or a bunch of kind of point solutions that are connected by universal adapter, or this kind of, people are starting to use the language connective tissue. Do you think one of those is better for you as someone who's operating clinical trials? And do you think one of those is more likely to be possible?
You know, Steve, I'm an optimist, right? I think anything's possible. It's just what's adaptable and what's going to be really taken up by the industry. You know, the dream obviously is end to end. I mean, that I think anybody would agree that that's the dream. That's the unicorn scenario. The reality of that, I don't know. There's a lot of vendors out there trying to do it. I don't have a great perfect answer for you. What I'll say is I keep it real. I'm not good with platitudes. I say it like it is. As an operationalist, having these universal adapters and these APIs, it still creates all the silos that we're currently in today. That doesn't do anything for me. So when I talk to vendors and we're system agnostic, I love that word. I think it's hilarious. It's lip service. I really do. I just like, oh, you're system agnostic. Really, I guarantee you we're going to find a system that's going to have trouble playing nice in the sandbox with your API. So to answer the question, so we can get to other questions, end-to-end is the dream for me, all the way from, A to Z. I think that would be an amazing situation, not only for a sponsor, but for the sites participating in that study. I'm a huge advocate for sites, Steve, you know that. And what coordinators have to deal with on a day-to-day basis, times 10, however many studies they're doing it, it's not a realistic expectation. The system is so broken fundamentally that an end-to-end solution, if it truly delivers and if it was truly adoptable, it'd be a win.
All right. I'll take it. I think that's for me really interesting, because I don't hear a lot of people taking a stand there. So it's interesting to know that would be preferable if such a thing could exist. I will be rubbing my lucky rabbit's foot and talking to all the technologists in the meantime. Some of these I might pull the thread on and double click and ask a follow-up question. But I think for this one, I don't want to dive too deep into technology, mainly because we're about at waist level depth already for me. And if we go out any further, I will be treading too deeply to have a meaningful contribution to the conversation. So let's go back to ye old wheel and see what else we can come up with. Okay, great. This one's wide because I double weighted it. I did actually want people to talk to understand what's going on. So, elevator pitch, or as deep as you want to go, what is Contraline? What are you guys working on? I know you've run some studies. You're planning some studies. Can you just kind of orient us? Because I think it's really cool.
Yeah. We actually have a huge press release coming out next week, so stay tuned. I don't know when this is going to go live, but it's going to be breaking news, so much so that it's going to be broadcasted on the NASDAQ in Times Square on the big building there.
Nice.
So Contraline is the male contraceptive company. We are the next revolution in men's health. So you might have not heard me right, but yes, male contraception. I mean, that hasn't changed since the 1880s, since the invent of the condom, right? So there's been no innovation besides the fact of vasectomies and condoms for men, ever since the dawn of time, really since the 1960s when the female oral contraceptive pill was introduced. So Contraline is on the cusp of changing that for the world. We are bringing the world's first phase 3 asset to a phase 3 pivotal registrational trial next year, which is going to be the first ever male contraceptive product used for men to shoulder the responsibility and to start really having a place in the contraceptive arena, right? Having these conversations. It's going to be a heavy lift, Steve. It's got to take a lot of just kind of generational change in the way that people think about family planning, because really when you talk to guys, they always say, hey, well, what methods do you have? Well, we have a condom, we have a vasectomy, and her method.
Yeah.
Um, and so really, there's a lot of market research, but I don't want to, let me know how deep you want me to go. But, it's a male contraception company, and we do have multiple assets. We have a device arm of our company, and we have a pharma arm of our company. We've exclusively licensed the asset that's going into phase 3 from the NIH and the Population Council, who've been working on this product since 2008. And I'm really excited to lead that. It's a heavy burden on my shoulders as I walk conference floors. Women yell at me, it's about time, and I agree. It is about time.
Yeah. Knowing all the people and the reasons people get yelled at by women on conference floors, I think that's a reasonable one.
Yep.
So, okay, I know you have the two assets. One is like a device situation, kind of like an implant, and the other is a hormonal approach. Like, I do want to go a little deeper into this because it's just so interesting and unique, and I love things that are like kind of one of. It feels cool. So, like the standard, we're developing a therapy for a disease, like, and someone who has it feels like I need treatment, or the treatment I have isn't working. Give me something else. This is proactive. Like, do you think is there demand for this? You said generational shift. Like, are we going to have to invent the thing and then convince everybody they want it? Like, that seems very risky.
So, Steve, to answer your question, there is a tremendous, tremendous demand for this. We at Contraline have an organic database with $0 spent just in the United States. Literally, we've not done a single dollar in advertising. These are organic people searching vasectomy near me or some sort of way, and they stumble upon Contraline's website. And if you go there to contraline.com/participate, you too can leave your information there. And essentially, we have over 22,000 men, and it's growing exponentially month over month, who are hand raisers, early adopters wanting to participate in a Contraline study, whether it's hormonal or the device, which is a non-hormonal reversible vaso-occlusive contraceptive option. But the demand is real. Men want to take charge of their own reproductive, quality. They want to have a seat at the table. They also want to help their partners out who, they're contraindicated in taking their current method. This isn't just a men's health issue. It's really a women's health issue, right? With progestin use and estrogen use, and a lot of the women who use their methods, their IUDs and implantables and injectables and pills. I mean, there's tremendous burden on the woman to carry this responsibility. So to answer your question, Steve, based on market research with the Bill and Melinda Gates Foundation, the MCI initiative, which is the Male Contraceptive Initiative. I'm going to a conference next week in DC at the ICMC, which is the International Congress on Male Contraception. It's a real thing, man. Yes, the world is ready. Okay. They've been waiting.
All right. Last one, and then we'll give the old wheel another spin. So it sounds like, I mean, if you've got a organic database of people who are like kind of knocking on your door, my world is patient recruitment. It feels like you might not have so much of an issue there, like if you've got a bunch of hand raisers. But I am curious, like, how do you design a study like this and get people in the door? Like, is it placebo controlled? Are there going to be a bunch of people who wish they didn't have kids, having kids running around as a part of your trial? Like,
it's a great question.
Is mind blowing to me.
Yeah, it's a great question. So it's funny because people don't often think about contraception in the sense of, how it really should be run in a pivotal sense. So I'm happy to tell you contraceptive studies are open label, at least for the male one here. Obviously, for female contraception, the guidance was issued in 2019 on the development of hormonal contraception. And regrettably today, we don't have guidance to make male contraceptives. So we have to look at the female guidance. And that really is predicated on the number of cycles that a woman has that's valuable during that time frame. And what constitutes an valuable cycle is that, the female is on a method and they have sexual intercourse at least once a month. And it has to be a cycle between 25 and 31 days. So, assuming you have a number of cycles, then you basically move into, it's an open label situation here. So we are not going to have a bunch of parents who don't want to have kids having kids. That's great
Great.
news. And really, we have to run it open label for this one.
Okay, awesome. Well, I'm really excited. I'm looking forward to the press release. I will try and get this out before then so that it can contribute to the excitement of the people and
Amazing.
all 9 viewers who watch this. Okay, let's see what else we can do with our wheel of questions here. I would love to get a silly one, but nope, we're going to get another real one. So I walked into the end of your panel at Scope. This was happenstance. I was speaking right after you. And I might even be wrong about remembering it because I didn't have my notebook out, but you were wrapping up and kind of giving this charge to the audience who it was the small biopharma track. And you were talking to sponsors and saying like, hey, you need to let vendors be the experts. Did I remember that correctly? And what do you mean by that?
I think what we were kind of concluding on that track is really how to optimize and run lean teams. And so when you're running a lean team, Contraline is not a large company at the moment, but we are scaling, very, very fast and building out the team required to execute a phase 3 registrational trial. But I say that to say, Steve, when you're engaging vendors and you're starting to vet them and qualify them and looking to see if they're an extension of your philosophy, your vision, the way that you run things, you hire them because they have a certain expertise. I don't want to get into which type of vendor. There's a lot of different flavors, right? But really leaning into their expertise, if they are the SMEs that they claim to be, we shouldn't be driving their decisions. We should be kind of leaning into their offerings, right? We can obviously poke holes. Does it work for us? Does it not work for us? Can it do this? Can it do that? If it can't, why? If it does, how do we get there? So what I mean is we shouldn't be defining a vendor's workflow. We really need to lean into their expertise on what they have seen across their portfolios of what's worked well, what hasn't gone so great, what could be improvement, nice to haves, must haves. And that's what I mean, Steve, because everybody has an
Okay.
opinion. That everybody has an opinion on that, but we need to really let them drive.
All right, that's fair. I'm gonna sort of double click here. You're like the exact person that I would have reached out to as someone who's trying to sell a solution, like VP of ClinOps, smaller company. Like you're probably making decisions with a couple other people, but you are largely the dude. How blown up is your inbox across like
Ugh.
email, LinkedIn, cold calls? Like, how do you deal with that? Do you respond to anyone? Like you're evaluating vendors, and so like the people you're going to evaluate are probably reaching out to you proactively. I'm just curious, like, what does that look like day to
So
day?
yeah, the inbox is wild. People reach out to a colleague of mine. There's 2 Roberts at Contraline. It's no secret. You can go to our website. We actually have the same initials, RG too. So it's crazy. I mean, he gets a lot of my emails. I don't get any of his, but everybody he kind of forwards them to me. It's an internal joke. Steve,
Perfect,
my
perfect.
inbox is blown up to the point where I have to block people. I'm being very
Yeah,
honest. It's out of hand. I don't like unsolicited, reaching out. I just think cold calling that's I'm not your target guy. I won't entertain that. Don't call me, I'll call you, as I've said in many different editorials and things like that. And there's a reason for that. My LinkedIn is even worse. It's getting to a point where I can't even triage the amount of inbound messages that I get on a daily basis. And really, it bothers me because I do like to engage, I do like to mentor, I do like to give back to our community. So oftentimes I do miss messages, not because I mean to, it's
yeah.
just because it happens. I mean, I wish there was a way to kind of put, people that are vetted and kind of in the circle into a certain column. But regrettably, I can't do that yet with LinkedIn. So LinkedIn, if you're watching this, which you will be, because Steve's going to blow up. We need some functionality like that. Yeah. So Steve, it's overwhelming to say the least. And really just this, do you have 5 minutes for a virtual coffee? Do you have it? It's never 5 minutes,
No.
Steve. And by the way, I will give a shout out to one. I don't want to name the company, but I did get a message and I happened to see it, and he's like, I will pay you $200 for 15 minutes. And I'm like, there's no way this guy's being serious. So I actually said, hey, let's do this. And Steve, he did pay $200 for 15 minutes. So that's my new mantra. If you don't have $200, you don't get 15 minutes or five.
That's insane, and I love it. And I have so many questions about that, but I'm not going to go there. I'm going to take this time for people who are like in that boat of like, how do I reach out? And I'm not going to toot my own horn much, but you reached out to me, Robert.
I did. I
And
did.
all it took was me being on LinkedIn for 5 years to establish enough credibility for a vendor to come out to me. So, yeah, I like if you are that person, the best time to start posting was 5 years ago. The second best time is now. Like you can start establishing credibility on your own. Doesn't mean you're going to get a flood of LinkedIn inbound. It just means that you can build up your own voice so that those conversations happen more naturally when it's time. And I do not envy you the position you're in. I also don't envy the people who need to put food on the table by selling stuff and have no other way other than cold outbound. It's just a tough scene. There's a million companies that have tried to be like that marketplace of vendors to make it easier and less sleazy, and none of them seem to work. Bummer. Okay, we're going to move on. Thank you for sharing that. And the $200 is insane. Our entire marketing budget will be shifted to just buying $200 calls. Cool. Let's go back to the wheel. All right. I have a category called unhinged corporate icebreakers. So it's like a standard corporate icebreaker, but if the person in charge of the meeting was like losing their grip on reality. So what meal most clearly says, I've stopped fighting the system?
Oh man. I'd say like, a Big Mac, large fries, high C orange.
Absolutely. Yeah. Yeah. You're
It
rolling
just
through and you're like, this is bad for me, but I know that they have scientifically arranged the fat, salt, and carb count to be enjoyable. I'm doing it.
literally. Yep. Verbatim.
Yeah, that's fair. I think the triple dipper at Chili's is also probably up there on the on that list.
Definitely.
All
Definitely.
right, cool. Let's keep going. Yeah, we don't have to spend a ton of time there. It just makes us sad. All right. I love live things, and especially in the land of AI, live experiences are just cool. So, what was the last ticketed event you went to?
Literally last night I went to Pitbull and Little John.
What?
Yep, Talking Stick
Okay.
Amphitheater. Yep, okay. Yep. It was wild. It was crazy last night. Yeah, here in
That
Arizona,
is
Phoenix.
crazy. So they're just in
Yeah.
town. Like, so are you a big like concert goer, or just happen to
Yeah,
be?
I love concerts. I love theater. I saw, Post Malone not too long ago, Metallica when they were here for the 2 days when yeah, their lead singer got COVID and then they had to postpone it for another week. So I got to draw that out. It was super fun. But yeah, I love concerts, love theater, I love ticketed events, Steve.
Okay, there it is. Where are you based?
Comedy.
You're Phoenix?
Phoenix, Arizona. Yeah, Scottsdale specifically, but yeah,
Okay, so you guys have a lot of options on the table.
tons going on.
I'm in Orlando, and like weirdly, bands don't come here that often. It's kind of a bummer.
It is kind of a bummer, but it's so driven by like Disney and Universal. So maybe the bands are just like people are already there on vacation. They're not going to come see a concert. But people live there. I don't know, Steve. It's a
Yeah, it's
weird
weird.
thing.
I will say Disney and Universal and SeaWorld, what they do is they always have these concert series of bands that are like kind of sad to go see. Like they had one hit or like they were popular in like 1993. It's hit or miss. We went to see Meatloaf, rest in peace, at Busch Gardens, Tampa, because my wife's a huge fan, and it was bad. Like he was very much like over the hill. Okay, live
Yeah,
events are the best. Everyone should go do things in
definitely.
your local community, support live music. Okay, we are rapidly exhausting the wheel. All right, this is annoying, but I gotta ask, mainly because I'm gonna probably try and catalog people's answers over time if we get enough of these episodes stacked up. But really, it's in an average day. So not like Contraline is doing this, but you as
Yeah.
part of like your day to day. How are you using AI? Are you using AI? And I'm just curious there.
Yeah, I have strong opinions on AI, and I've written a guest column for Clinical Leader that kind of was a huge hit. I do use AI. I absolutely use AI. It depends on what I'm doing it for. I do not use AI to generate my content. I do not use AI to write my emails because you still have to use your brain. AI to me is a collaborator. I
Sure.
do crunch a lot of our data in our internal LLM that we do have. If I were to pick a public model, not even a public model, but a paid version of a public model, when I mean public, I mean Claude, Anthropic,
Yeah.
Perplexity, Chat, whatever. I'm a huge fan of Claude, and I'm a huge fan of Anthropic. Um, I use it on my day-to-day life just to kind of ease the burden of making data-informed decisions. Whatever that may mean is data-informed decisions in the sense of
All right, we're gonna
how,
get our first podcast
oh,
guest, who
love
is
it.
a kid of mine. What do you need, buddy?
It won't turn off. Adam's here, and
Okay, just let it play.
but I
Go.
literally took the batteries out,
Okay,
and it won't turn off.
it's okay. It's okay. Just let it go. Shut the door, please.
That's amazing. That is amazing for the first episode.
Yeah, for all of the reasons, I'm now like sweating and bothered. Okay, so Claude AI, you're using that, your crunchy numbers, you're using it as a collaborator. I think that's like absolutely the right way to go. I have strong takes here too, and they're probably in the same direction. I think the more you're using it to generate ideas, the worse off you are.
Hmm.
And there's a lot of good stuff. I'm forever kind of mentioning this organization called State of Brand. They're essentially like an online magazine. They've been coming out with just super heavy hitting articles lately, and they just published something called The Great Flattening. And it's kind of a compendium of a lot of academic research on AI and how it's causing a narrowing of thinking and voice, and it's like showing up in the data. That it's not
Wow.
just like people who are subjectively like, oh, that LinkedIn post feels like AI. It's like large vetted studies. I'll put a link somewhere so that people can see it. I do want to ask, like, one of the things I've seen is a lot of these companies are losing money, like pretty
Mm.
badly. Like the cost of compute is way higher than what people are paying for their $20 a month subscription. And there's an argument out there that goes something like you build all these capabilities around an AI platform, and then they 10x the price. And then you're either going back to stage one on your capabilities, or you are now like kind of screwed on the P&L because you have this giant cost center that was previously like an efficiency center. Like, are you thinking about that at all, or are you just kind of like, I'm paying $20 a month for my own personal thing, I don't care?
Yeah, Steve, I'm definitely not thinking at that level or depth of understanding, what the computing power is required and the cost of electricity and all that kind of stuff to power my ideas but I mean it's a fair thing to talk about. I mean it's something that people should consider based on what they're using. Um, Again, that's why I don't rely so heavily on it. I mean, there's so much debate around, just different jurisdictions and, not
Sure.
allowing data centers to be built, the electricity consumption.
Yeah.
I mean, I think Dan, my good buddy Dan Sfera, he wrote an article around eventually the energy consumption is going to outweigh the actual company itself. Like you're not going to be able to drive enough energy to even power this stuff. I don't know that to be true. I don't really have an opinion on it, but as a user, Steve, I don't think about that. To be
Fair.
honest, I
All
don't.
right. Okay. I'm gonna go. I want to get this one because I'm very curious. Spicy take. Okay, do this one quick if you have one. Just anything controversial opinion. You're very opinionated and you speak a lot, so I don't think this is going to be a shocker to people.
Uh,
Doesn't have to be clinical research.
I don't know, Steve. It's boy, that's a tough that's a tough one. A
Okay.
spicy take. Help me out here. Help me out here.
Um, like I think paper is better than e-source. Like is
I'll
a
tell you what.
spicy take,
I,
but
I think I think most sponsors are full of shit. There you go.
all right.
I'll say it just like that. It's a bunch of lip service. People don't say what they mean or mean what they say. I'm gonna do this. I'm gonna do that. No, and that's my problem. I read LinkedIn. I read different forums. It's just a bunch of like yes people, just following the trend. There's very few people that will stand up and go against the grain, paddle upstream, not downstream, go against the current. Um, I think I'll just leave it at that, Steve.
Okay. Yeah, that's fair. I think going against the current puts you at risk. And
It does.
yeah, all right. There's just one left, but I like to hear the little ding. I am so curious about this, and I'm bummed that we have 2 minutes and 30 seconds left to talk about it. But you kind of came out of nowhere and just started posting on LinkedIn, and you're really prolific. And I think what's really interesting to me is you're a sponsor, and that is rare. Like you're one of the only sponsors who is constantly. But where did this come from?
So my leadership and my CEO is just super supportive of, what I do. It was very well known that I have a consulting company, and so, at the time I had a lot of clients, a lot of well-known clients. If you're in the industry, you will definitely know the people that I've helped. I've built companies from the ground up, Steve, that have been acquired. Very proud of those accomplishments. So I decided, after really, kind of Dan Sfera, again, not to give him another shout
Yeah.
out, but he was
Give
a
him
really,
all the shout outs. He's
yeah,
great.
he was really instrumental in kind of encouraging me. He's like, hey, you have this platform. He's like, you're the only sponsor, to your point, who is willing to come on this podcast, and that was Guru Nation After Dark that we kind of, created together. And he's just like, you got to start, giving your ideas, start just saying what you mean, and all this stuff that you're saying, it really resonates. And people started asking to like get in contact with me through him. And so a lot of it was, I owe a lot of it to him, to do that. Another time was several years ago, I joined a clinical trial. Um, and Dan was like, hey, you should
Amen.
definitely post that. And I'm like, nah, I'm not gonna. I was definitely not gonna post this. He's like, trust me, post it. I posted it, Steve, and it went crazy. So ever since then, I was like, you know what? I'm gonna just go on and talk about random things that everybody's thinking, but don't have, or I don't want to say they don't have the gall to post it. Maybe they just their hands are tied. They can't post it, right? I also want to make the
Yeah,
caveat that what I say on my personal LinkedIn is my opinion. It doesn't
of
necessarily reflect
course.
that of my employer or anybody
Sure,
else.
sure,
It's
sure.
simply me. I'm fortunate to do that. Not every company allows that. I think it's look, man, it's First Amendment. Talk how you want to talk. I don't think it has to reflect on where you're employed. And a lot of employers govern what their employees can and cannot say on public platforms. I don't have that. I'm very fortunate. That's maybe why I'm a little bit more risky than others. And to your point, going against the grain is or going upstream is risky. But I refuse to settle for the status quo. I'm a disruptor. I'm going to talk. I'm going to say what everyone wants to say, but can't say or don't want to say in a public forum. My comment section is exactly that, right? I mean, if you look at my comments, this is hilariously real. My most recent post, and I love that. That's what drives me,
Yeah.
Steve. So that's kind of what started it. And I plan my content release on Sundays. I sit down and I write my posts for the next month. I'm not actively posting these at the cadence in which they show up on your feed, or if they don't show up at all, that's okay too. But
Oh, they show
yeah,
up.
Steve, that's really where it came
Okay.
from, man. And I get good
Yeah.
engagement.
I think there's people who are like trying to build a personal brand, and then there's people who are doing that, but it feels like the goal is to stir the pot, start conversation, put ideas out there, and like I've just seen that. Like I do read the comments and engage, and there's a lot of people who just feel seen, which is
Yep.
cool. I also think it's not just your employer. If you're in the vendor space or you're a solution provider, it's also the people who might buy from you. It's like everyone. You have to really be careful about what you say. And so you're absolutely right. Like you kind of do have some freedom if Contraline allows it to kind of say whatever you want. Your inbox is still going to be blown up with people who want to sell to you, whether or
Love
not
it.
you post on LinkedIn. So I think it's really cool. Any like needle movement, like where you feel like it's led to something that has been beneficial? Like I know obviously it's like kind of put you out there a little bit more, maybe more speaking opportunities and stuff like that. But have you seen any like seeds or hints of industry change because of you stirring the pot?
I have. I actually have. So from just different working groups, white papers, and thought sessions around the ICF process. I made a post around, how can a patient be truly informed with a 40-page consent, within a 30-minute window to read it. And this whole idea of the sixth grade reading level. So we actually, started to have a big brainstorming session around this at Magi, in Chicago this year.
that's
You
cool.
know, and white papers are being sent, and regulators are listening, and you know, we have different working groups, and so I also like to think that I was invited to a closed door session at Scope this year that was hosted by Invenio, and you know, it was another situation where you know it was 6 different ClinOps leaders that came across a closed door session. It was recorded, and that went to a global publication. And so different regulators are listening. I mean, we've had the director of the European Medicines Association say, "Hey, if you're a male contraceptive, you have an open invitation. Come talk to me." So, you know,
Wow.
these are big moments where I think that if everybody shares a common goal and and a shared mission, and you believe in something where the consent process is definitely broken, people are definitely not well informed, I promise you. And if you say they are, you're wrong. Um, you know, really, where does the rubber hit the road here, Steve? You know, so I do believe that, you know, I'm not taking credit for anything, you know, of course, but I do believe having these conversations is where it begins. It has to, it takes somebody to spark something, right? You strike a
Yeah.
nerve, to your point, you hit something that makes somebody feel seen, you hit something that makes something feel resonant. Maybe you kind of do something controversial, and you let people kind of just duke it out themselves, and that's going to elicit the change that we want to see. I mean, otherwise, Steve, why is this industry 10 years behind every other industry? Literally, on every front.
Because it's awesome.
It is awesome. That's why we're here.
Yeah. Wow. All right. Thank you. That's really helpful, and I think we'll kind of use that as the end note, end point. Oh God, editing.
The end
It's,
point.
it's all
Oh
going
boy.
away. Thanks so much, man. I really
Hey,
appreciate your time. I know you're busy and you've got an overflowing inbox, so this is very deeply appreciated. And
it's my
thanks for
pleasure,
coming
man.
on.
Thank you for having me. Really appreciate it.
All right. Cheers.
Cheers, man.
30 minutes randomized.
Thanks for listening to 30 Minutes Randomized. If you enjoyed the show, please feel free to like, subscribe, review, or share it with a friend. Until next time, I'm your host, Steve Wimmer, reminding you to stay random.